On the morning of June 14, 2025, at exactly 9:23 a.m., what began as a routine U.S. Navy patrol through the tense waters of the South China Sea exploded into a high-stakes confrontation. The USS Princeton, a guided missile cruiser, was cutting through calm, international waters when her spy radar suddenly spiked with an aggressive contact. Over 200 kilometers away, a Chinese Type 052D destroyer, until now motionless, sprang to life, pushing from 18 to 30 knots in just 90 seconds. Unbeknownst to the Princeton's crew, the Chinese captain had been given a direct order from Beijing: intercept the Americans and force them to turn back. But Beijing was about to relearn a painful truth: challenging the U.S. Navy is a gamble few survive. Nearby sailed the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, the embodiment of American naval dominance. Their mission was clear: protect global trade routes that carried China's own goods, through one of the world's busiest maritime corridors. They were 180 nautical miles from the nearest Chinese shore, guarding a lifeline through which $3.4 trillion worth of trade flows every year. The U.S. ships moved with quiet precision. Beijing's destroyer charged forward like a blunt instrument. Within minutes, Princeton's radar team identified the contact, fully armed and closing fast. With 122 vertical launch cells, the cruiser could eliminate the threat in seconds. But the Americans didn't bite. They held their nerve. The destroyer would enter weapons range in just 17 minutes, unaware it was sailing into a trap. By 9:29 a.m., the Princeton's captain had been fully briefed. He didn't tense, he smirked. "Let's see how badly they want to humiliate themselves," he said, scanning the horizon. Around them, 46 merchant vessels, tankers, LNG carriers, semiconductor freighters, moved under the protective umbrella of the strike group. China's maneuver wasn't just aggressive, it was reckless. They seemed to think intimidation could work, forgetting that the U.S. Navy hasn't lost a surface battle in more than a century. At 9:35 a.m., the situation escalated. An E-2D Hawkeye, circling high above, reported J-15 fighters scrambling from China's carrier Shandong. Their fuel-hungry ski jump launches meant short combat endurance. Below, Princeton's sonar detected another intruder, a Type 039 submarine lurking 80 nautical miles away. But it was noisy, its signature echoing through the depths like a steel drum. In combat, it wouldn't last 30 seconds. Chinese forces were outdated, their tactics clumsy. Their destroyers lacked modern systems, their carrier fighters were underpowered, and their submarines were far from stealthy. The Americans moved like a single organism. The Nimitz adjusted flight operations, destroyers shifted into layered defensive lines, and the fleet linked in real time through cooperative engagement systems. China was now inside a kill box. Electronic warfare lit up the skies. EA-18G Growlers flooded Chinese radar with false contacts, while American fighters appeared and vanished at will. RC-135 Rivet Joint Crews listened to Chinese pilots urgently asking for permission to engage. But the U.S. was already 3 moves ahead. The flashpoint came at 9:47 a.m. China's destroyer locked fire control radar on the USS Nimitz, the naval equivalent of pointing a loaded gun. Princeton's targeting systems instantly locked in return. For 30 tense seconds, the Americans gave them a chance to stand down, fully aware they could reduce the destroyer to wreckage before it fired a shot. Above, a J-15 tried to flank a U.S. Super Hornet, only for the American pilot, a Top Gun graduate, to slide perfectly into a kill position, finger resting off the trigger. This was not weakness, it was control. At 9:51 a.m., the Chinese submarine exposed itself, raising its snorkel to recharge batteries. Princeton's sonar team had been tracking it for over an hour. In a real fight, it would have been gone in under 15 seconds. By early afternoon, China's forces were boxed in, the destroyer to the west, the submarine to the southwest, and the carrier to the northwest, surrounded. At 2:30 p.m., the U.S. dropped the hammer. The Nimitz launched 48 aircraft in a deafening wave, Super Hornets and Growlers filling the sky while enemy radar was drowned in electronic static. But the real psychological blow came from beneath the waves. A U.S. Virginia-class submarine, invisible for 8 days, surfaced just 6 nautical miles from the Shandong. For 90 seconds, it floated there, close enough for Chinese sailors to see with their own eyes, before slipping back under. The message was unmistakable: we own this ocean. Low on fuel and morale, Chinese fighters retreated by 4:23 p.m., claiming training complete. But the truth was plain: They came to intimidate and left humiliated. The South China Sea had made its choice. This wasn't Beijing's water. It was America's sixth Great Lake.